All right, this is the second part of our MouseTheremin project example. In the first part, we made an adjustable oscillator and it was tracking mouse position, mouse state. This part of the demonstration isn't going to use the sound at all. It's going to focus on the LCD object, which we can use for drawing, and it can give us a constrained or specific drawing space. And we can track that and use that in a number of ways. We can also create some interesting graphics or silly drawings with it um, instead of just watching the mouse move. So to start then, the first object that we need to put into our patch is the LCD. It's going to come up with a square, and if we look over in the inspector, the patching rectangle is something we want to pay attention to. The coordinates are showing us its position from the left, its position from the top, and then how wide and how high it is. So if I change the object by moving it closer, you can see over in here that it's now 18 pixels from the left edge. It's still about 118 from the top. I'm going to move it down a little bit, and I'm going to make it bigger. So let's say it's going to be about, let's try for something exact, 400 by 300. And I can type that in if I want. So I'm going to make it 400 pixels wide, 300 pixels tall, hit enter, and it's a 4:3 old style television screen as we go through it. So we lock the patch. What LCD will do, one function, is to let us draw. So if I hold the mouse down and move it, I can make drawings, unlock the patch, and send a clear message that will erase. And so it's one thing we can do. Excuse me. Unlock again. We can track mouse coordinates inside and actually outside the LCD as long as we're holding the mouse down while we draw. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So this first outlet is the XY location of the mouse when the mouse is clicked or when the button is held down in your drawing. So I'm going to move it over to the right inlet of message so that we'll see the coordinates for when we click. And so you can see them display X and Y. You'll also notice that if I draw and keep going outside, it will still keep showing me coordinates as long as the mouse button is down. If it's not down, it doesn't matter. If I go outside and I let go, it stops drawing. And then I hit the clear message. LCD will also display mouse coordinates when the mouse is in the LCD, but not with the mouse button down. So let's take a copy of the message box, find the second outlet, and go in. And it's important, we need another message. We have to tell LCD to track. So right now it's not doing anything. So I'm going to move this clear message up because I'm going to add actually a lot of messages for LCD. I can move these down a bit. Okay. So the next thing we want to do with a message is we want to tell the LCD what its idle state is, whether or not to track the mouse when it's idle. And so we can say idle 1, which is true. And then connect that in, move that up. So now if I click on idle and I move my mouse over the screen, but I'm not holding the mouse button down, I'm getting XY coordinates as long as I'm inside the box. Now the mouse is not idle if it's not on the LCD. It's off. And even if I start clicking outside the LCD, it doesn't carry on when I move back in. Okay? But now, so I'm tracking the mouse when I draw with my mouse button down out the first outlet, and I'm tracking it as I move it around in the screen when the mouse button is up. And I can clear it. Okay? So Next thing I might want to do is adjust the size of the pen that I'm drawing with. Right, standard drawing commands, but we're musicians, so we're not always thinking about these things. So let's create another message. Let's unlock the patch and create another message. It's going to be pen size. And the pen size is two-dimensional. But we can think of it as, if you want to think of it as being a square, you could make pens that were rectangles, but we'll make it two-dimensional. We'll say $1, $1. And what we'll do is create an integer box, integer object going to pen size, and then pen size going into our object. Everything's going to go in this first inlet over here. So if I lock again, and now I'm going to up my pen size to 11, and I'm making big bold strokes as I go through. I would bring it back down. 1 is the standard or default. I go up to something really big. That's going to fill up a small LCD window pretty quickly. Always have clear. Okay, let's put that back down, maybe to a 4. Okay, I can also change the color of the pen, and that's considered to be the foreground color. And so the message or the attribute would be foreground RGB. It's the foreground pen color. But I'm going to do something, I'm not going to use a message box because I want to be able to change the 3 values independently and send out the list when I change any of them. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to use POC, which is different from PAC. Remember, it outputs the list when any element changes. The first item of the list is going to be the foreground RGB, and then there's going to be 3 color attributes for the list, the red, the green, and the blue. Then I need 3 integers going into the second, third, and fourth. It's my R, or red value, green value, and blue value. And then this is going to go in, pass the message, going to go in, click over, keep leaving room. So if I lock it, so say I want a lot of red. 255 is the maximum value. So all of these fit in this 0 to 255 range. Enter. If I come down here, now I have a red pen. Maybe I hit 0 here and change this to 255. And I have a green pen, and so on. I can make combinations. But each time I change any item, the whole list is sent out. That's what POC does. It's different from PAC. So I could bring up both my red and my blue, and I can have purple. That's atrocious, so let's continue on here. Clear that out. And so I've changed my pen size, I've changed my pen color. Now I'm going to create what's called a sprite. And sprite is an animated graphic character. It itself doesn't change. It's a static image, but it can follow along, it can move along on the screen. And in this case, we're going to make a graphic shape that follows the mouse when we're not holding the mouse button down. And so it gives us a little image to display. So what we're going to do is we're going to use, this is another message. And we start with the command record sprite, or the message record sprite, followed by a comma. And remember, when I use a comma in a message, it is creating multiple messages. So the first thing that's going to be sent to LCD is record sprite. That is a message to tell it to remember the drawing that it's about to receive. And so I'm going to set the pen size and give it a pin size of maybe 6 pixels by 6 pixels, and a comma, because that message is over. Then I'm going to tell it to use the paint oval message. So just as a filled in oval. And I'm giving it, again, the left position, top position, and its width and height. And I'm doing it, I'm thinking about it in relative terms to where the mouse will be. So I'm going to say that it is, and actually pin size doesn't matter since the oval is filled in, but that's okay. The paint oval will be minus 12, which will mean it'll be 12 pixels left of my mouse, minus 12, which will be 12 pixels above my mouse position, and then it'll be 12 pixels wide and 12 pixels high. And I need to fill in a color. So I'm going to match the purplish values that I have right now in my number box. I'm going to say 178 for the red, 0 for the green, 202 for the blue, another comma. Then I'm going to tell the LCD to close sprite, which tells it to stop recording or stop collecting commands to draw a sprite, and I'm going to name it circle. Okay. Now at this point, nothing happens. So I haven't told the LCD to do anything with the sprite. So need to tell it to enable sprites, and that value should be true or 1. And I also need to give it parameters. So I'm going to take the idle output and pull this around. First I need to give it actually command. So I'm enabling it, and now I'm going to tell it with an object called prepinned, draw sprite circle. And what draw sprite circle is then expecting would be the X and Y mouse coordinates. So I did it as a message, and that was wrong. I need to do it as an object. Prepinned as an object. Pull it here. I'm going to take this output and go around and come out of this. So now I've turned sprites on, and if I move, coordinates are being sent, and the circle is following my mouse. Then when I hold my mouse down, I draw. Since it's not getting updated position from mouse idle, the sprite is not moving. It will follow me once I let go of the mouse button again. It'll jump to where I am as soon as I move the mouse. All right, and it's still there. So that's all working pretty well. Now I can do a few things to clean this up. I can hide the circle, the sprite, where when I'm drawing. So let's go down over here, and I have an ability to see when I'm clicking the mouse or not, just like from mouse state. So I'll add a toggle, just so we can see it. And then I'm going to look for when the mouse is up. And for when the mouse is down. just so you can see mouse is up, mouse is down. All right. Then I'm going to do two things. When the mouse is down, I'm going to hide the circle. So that's a message. Hide sprite. And now I need to tell it what sprite to hide. The circle. Comes in. And so that's when the mouse is down. So that's my 1. Going to come outside and actually I'm going to come inside here so we don't have any crossing. So now it's going to get hidden whenever the mouse goes down. And then when I move the mouse, it comes back if I've let the button go. All right. So that's good. Makes the sprite go away. I'm no longer, it's a kind of visual sign that I'm holding the mouse button down. If I didn't know that with my own hand, I'm going to clear. And so it's one thing I keep doing now is I keep going back and clearing. I've drawn a bunch of stuff and I clear. And I can automate that process. So say when I let go of the mouse, this would be if the mouse state matches 0, I could send a bang to clear. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it wait a little bit. So I'm going to use the delay object. This is a message delay, and it only delays bangs. It doesn't delay any other messages or data. So I'm going to say delay 500 milliseconds. And then send this all the way around to clear. And now, when I hold the mouse down and draw, the sprite goes away. When I let go, half a second later, because of the delay, it clears whatever I drew. And I can adjust this time if I want with another number box. So say I want a short delay time. Say I want no delay time. As soon as I let go, it's gone. So I'll go back to the 500. And so this does everything that I'd like to do in this kind of drawing object to control my Theremin. It gives me all my drawing patterns. It'll let me draw something out. I'll see it on screen. I can change the color, the width, all those sorts of things. And I'm going to, in the next patch, create a bunch of things that automates the loading of the record sprite and the enable and all these things and puts it into an encapsulation. So that's going to be the next step. But for now, this is the second part of the MouseTheremin, and we're done.